All right, welcome and for tonight's webinar. We're glad you're joining us. Now, tonight's going to be a really interesting topic. I know in the news a lot, there's a lot going on about technology and AI and all this stuff. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to talk about what technology can do for you, but we're also going to be talking about what technology can't do for you. And you're going to be hosted tonight by Chris Goff and Bo Manry. I know a lot of you are REIPro subscribers. We just got through releasing a major update to the software. We've been working on it for quite some time. Lots of feedback from you, and we've got a lot of great feedback as well on the update. And I know a lot of people on here are not necessarily REIPro, and hopefully tonight we're going to open your mind up to the possibilities of how technology can help you, but also how there's a lot of other things that you got to be aware of. So
Yeah, and it wasn't just an update, to throw some stuff in there. This update is actually going to set us up for so many other things that we already have in the pipeline. I want to make sure that people understand, because we can overanalyze stuff, right? Especially, it doesn't even matter if you're a real estate investor or not. We get to that point where we just don't want to make a mistake. And I think we overanalyze things. So we need to understand what should we be looking at and what's kind of a shiny dangling object over here to be successful at this. So going through a lot of the new stuff as well as just kind of giving a good overall view and some of the cool things that we do using the software that maybe you haven't seen yet. I couldn't tell you how many people that we talked to that's like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was there. Because obviously the goal is to build a business, make extra income. And what a fantastic year this is going to be. Things are not great, but that's a good thing for us because we work with a lot of people that have problems. There's really three components to this business. We didn't have one of these components when I got started years ago, but now we do. So it definitely makes it a lot easier for us to maneuver through this business. But the first thing is you got to get educated. I think Bo, if you remember back in the day, I said to you, I said, look, I don't care how much software we have or anybody for that matter. You could have all this software and have no idea what to do with it, like just lost. And to me, that's where the education really has to be the big part of this. You have to understand
mhm.
your craft, not necessarily understanding all the data side to it. You need to understand the craft of what you're doing
there's
because,
definitely there's definitely an art to this, and you can throw all the data you want at it, but if you don't know what you're doing with it when it comes, then it's useless.
and I think that's where data runs into problems for people. Is it's like, oh, it's just I don't understand it. It just seems like I don't need it. I think it's a component. I think it's a fundamental tool that we're going to talk about. But the education to me always has to come first. Right? You probably don't even know you need software until you start learning about the real estate investing business. And everything we do really is wrapped around this. But we have to understand the fundamental craft of what we do first. And I said, Bo, that's the whole point. When we started REI Pro years ago, we have to put the education in. Like that's a major component of what we do. And I'm not really sure people really truly know how much value that we even have just on the education side, because I think it's just so important. And it's not just talking about theory, right? So it's all bullet points. No, it's talking in depth about the strategies that we do, systems, and so
Mhm.
forth. So I would say this is number one. If it, and it's kind of ranked this way, actually. Number two is the data. It's a simple fact that I have to understand that this is a property address. I have to pull information about this property. I have to know who owns the property. I have to be able to run numbers, run comparable sales. I have to understand numbers, the data that is consistent of this property so we can make actual good, wise investment decisions. And the third is really, to me, it's the systems, and everyone has a beginning and an end, I think. And how do we get there? And everybody could do it a little bit different. Another major component that I told Bo was we have to put the system in place. And we're going to be talking about how we built a system already implemented in there that you just simply follow. I couldn't tell you the thousands of testimonials we got just on the system side of it. but everybody does it a little bit different. And that's okay as long as we get to that end goal. So to me, I think there's three fundamental tools. It's education, you have to have the data, and then the systems that are involved. We're going to be running through all three of those components
And which is a good
tonight.
thing. I already see some of the questions, which we'll get to at the end, but talking about they're confused a little bit on some of the processes of certain things. So I think this is
I
really
hear
going to
that.
help,
Yep.
this is really going to help people as we go through this.
I want to give everybody the most basic process on how we do this from start to end. When you first come into REIPro, this is what you're going to see. We call it our dashboard. It's actually a two-part dashboard. So there's a little dashboard switch up here. If I go, we call this kind of more the analytic side of things, where this is kind of how to get started. We have once you become a member, we have a ton of different guides and charts down here. I can tell you, when I created this whole executable step system, people hear about what, yeah, they don't know what it is. When I put this stuff on paper, it was the physical things that we do in a specific order to make something happen. Because I hear it all the time. People are like, hey, Chris, I did this, but now what? Even me as an investor, it was kind of hard to explain years ago. Like, how do you really tell people? It's almost like, how do you write down how to teach your child how to ride a bike? It's just easier to show and say than it is to actually teach it. It's something I truly believe in today. I told Bo that is one of the major systems that we talk about systems here, a major system that has to go into the software. But for those that are getting started, to me, this is the missing piece. I couldn't tell you how many people just hit walls. People even refer to this as the GPS of real estate, this chart, but we actually have built this into the REIPro software, which we're going to get to. So you don't want to miss that. I think a lot of people, we have this really cool search bar. And I don't think a lot of people understand up here at the very top where it says find it here. Now, we have it defaulted to search for an address, but if I move this down, you could search for an APN number, you can search for an owner, and then you can also search for a property that either you have saved to the system because you're probably working it, or maybe you have it in a marketing campaign, or maybe you're searching for a buyer or contact. You could go specific, or you could just select all, and it will show you where that property is or where that contact is. Okay, no matter where in the system. Now, if I just start typing the address, and this is just a random address that I'm pulling here, you could see the drop down of addresses. The more that you type, this list will get shorter and shorter. Now, if I pull a single property up here, it's going to say, okay, what do you want to do with this? We're going to give you some of the basic information about the property. Now it's up to you to determine, do I really want to save this to my properties, or maybe do I want to add it to a marketing campaign? Because maybe I want to send some direct mail, maybe I want to do a bulk skip trace, whatever you want to do with the property, you make that decision here. Now, let me tell you why this is so important, because when I got started, all I did was drive for neighborhoods and send direct mail. That's all I did. It was the most affordable thing I could do. And at that time, that's pretty much all we knew what to do. So when I go driving around, say you're driving neighborhoods and you write down a few addresses, maybe potentially vacant as an example. When I bring that list home, this is the first place that I go, because one of the things that is the most important is this owner occupied status. Because if I'm driving, I'm not sure if it's vacant or not. It looks vacant, but I'm going to write it down anyways. I really need to know, is this property vacant? Does somebody actually live here? You think about, why would somebody have a vacant property? They're at least paying taxes and insurance, if not a mortgage. Somebody could vandalize it. Somebody could get hurt on the property. So you could have squatters on the property. At the end of the day, it's costing the owner money. So I always said, hey, that's a possible motivation. Maybe they want to sell. So if this property was not owner occupied, this would be something that I would either send direct mail to, or I would do a skip trace, pick up the phone and give them a call. Okay. So to me, this is kind of the starting point for those that are driving neighborhoods. This is what you do. I do want to give you a really good tip. When you're driving around, and I know for sure this property is vacant, I take a little V and I circle it. and I'll make a note for sure 100% this property is vacant. You could just tell. You could no furniture. You just tell, right? Because there could be times where the tax assessor says that they still live there. Maybe they left a month ago. You know what, Bo? A lot of people don't understand is that generally when somebody leaves a property,
Mhm.
the first thing on their checklist is not call the tax assessor to tell them that they moved.
And actually, yeah, I mean, I bet 50% of the time at least, they don't.
If anything, they do a change of address with the post office, right?
Mhm.
So there could be cases where, and this is super important, where you know it's vacant for sure, 100%. But when you come in and look up from the tax assessor point of view, it says they still live there, but you know that it's vacant. So when I see that, this is the status that I'm looking for. At the end of the day, I don't really care about this other information at this point at this time, but you do have access to any tax info if there's a mortgage, the deed transfers. Oh, and look, this property was actually, they did a quick claim because they changed the name of the LLC, is what it looks like. So, it's good to see the history sometimes of these because it could tell a story. I want everybody to clearly understand. I'm not digging deep into this at this point right now. I don't want to dig too far into the property unless I know that they're interested in selling. Otherwise, I'm going to be wasting my time. I'm not going to go run comps on this property yet. I need to know if they're actually interested in selling at this point.
Well,
Now, if I
Chris, and for a lot of people, if you're doing the driving for dollars, this is mobile friendly, works on your cell phones, your tablets. And if you're out there, you can look it up from that address and add it over to say create a temporary marketing campaign, throw all those in there, that you're finding as you go along the way.
Yeah, and I'm going to show you how to do that too. I'm just going to do it a little bit different way, but I wanted to show you that that is a capability. And that's the first thing that I would do if I'm driving for dollars. Number one. Okay. Now, up at the very top, if you're on a team plan, there's this little chat icon. This is pretty cool, actually. You could do live chatting with your team members. Hey, what's going on? Hey, did you talk to someone? You don't have to call them. You don't have to, you may be looking at a property. You don't have to be just on this screen. You can be on any screen. The cool thing is you can move it around too. But this is a great way to communicate very quickly with your team members. Again, you would need to be on a team plan. We have people that it's like, Chris, it's just three of us, but they're on the team plan because they like a lot of the functionality that you get with the team plan. So just throwing that out there. Obviously, this is one side to your dashboard. Now, if I flip over to the other side, this is where I get the opportunity to run some area statistics. So here you can see I pulled Memphis, Tennessee, Fayetteville, Georgia, Sterling, Virginia, Missouri City, Texas, Abilene, Texas. You could do zip codes as well here, but it's going to give me a good idea of what's going on in this marketplace. Now, if you want to add something here, start entering that county, city, or zip, and that will be in this little, what we call little chips, I guess you would say, Bo. If I
Yeah.
want to see what's going on the last 12 months. Do you see what happened? It went up and then went down. Now it's kind of slowly increasing from a median price point of view. So it does give you the history there. You're going to see lead results for these different areas. So I know that there's 9,000 absentee owners and so forth. So these are the different lead types that we have. And then below that, we have so many people use this calendar. This is so important because we live in a busy world and you can't remember everything.
Mm.
Incoming leads, you can connect any external website. If you have a Carrot website, you have any other website, you can integrate that through Zapier. There's some information about that in your account section. This is where if somebody goes to your website, they fill out a form, you can have that information sent over to REIPro so you can start working it. Any properties that you favorited, any properties that you have in follow up, and any popular sites that you like to go to. It's just a quick reference point. It will quickly take you there. All right, let's talk about the most important thing.
Yep.
That's finding deals. Let's go pull some leads because we have access to 156 million. Let's go find some. And that's going to be in your main menu. It's called LEADPro. What we want to do first is just enter a location. I've just already put in Houston, Texas. The
Okay.
next most important thing is, what are you looking for? you're going to see absentee owners, property free and clear of any mortgages, high equity, low equity. We have definitions for those. Owner occupied. Now, from an investor standpoint, this may not be that valuable, but to like a realtor, it's going to be extremely valuable because everybody's got that postcard in the mail that their local realtor has sold a house down the street from you, right? Pre-foreclosures, properties that are in a trust, properties that are upside down on their mortgages, vacant properties, bank owned, potential investors, and then vacant land. Now, one of the cool things that you could do here, and which we're going to do tonight, is called list stacking. So I can come in and say, okay, I want absentee owners that are vacant. And what that means, and this is so important, if you're a current user of REIPro, super important here. A vacant property, we update every 30 days, comes straight from the post office. So what the post office says is they try to deliver mail. I believe it's up to like 90 days.
90 days.
And nobody's picking up the mail, and they get tired. Like, oh, we're not going to keep delivering mail here. So they deem the property vacant. Now, I want you to also understand that the tax assessor could say they still live there. So if you try to send mail there and the tax assessor says they live there and you send it to the post office, no, we're not delivering mail to that address. We're going to return it. Super important. That's why I checked absentee owners. Now, if you come in here and just do vacant properties, I'm going to show you how to clean the list here very shortly so you can identify those properties that I was just talking about. But before we jump in, I want to show you something that I don't think a lot of people are utilizing. If you're new and you have no idea what to look for, I want you to understand what strategy you're working. So if you're working wholesaling, if you're rehabbing, lease option, seller financing, or pre-foreclosure, we have some defined filters already set for you. Okay. And this is going to help you get started if you don't know what you're looking for. We're going to go back. We're going to do absentee owners. We're going to also check, and this is what you call list stacking. It's actually narrowing the total amount of leads, because what we're saying here, it has to be vacant, but it's also has to be an absentee owner at the same time. Now, if we go in, we'll click search here. You're going to see the map on the right, which we're going to talk about because I think it's underutilized and there's so many cool tools here. We have a total of 5,400, just over 5,400 leads. We're only showing you 250 dots on the map, but you can see that there's 5,464. Here's the first thing that I do is to go to your filters, because what we want to do is start filtering this list down to our buying criteria. Now, we have defaulted the condo, townhome, multifamily, mobile home. I'm going to uncheck that and use single family as an example. But I also want to mention to you that you see the search box down here? You could find anything. A dairy farm, a bowling alley. I don't care if it's recorded information, any real estate that's recorded, which it all should be, you can find it. I'm narrowing it down to single family just because there's more of it here. As I scroll down, if you are a rehabber, it's very important. You're going to put in estimated values here. So depending on what strategy you're doing, may depend how you do this. I'm going to leave this blank for now and come back to it. I'm going to show you why here in a minute. I want everybody to look at potential equity. You can do it by dollars. I do it by percentage. Okay, I'm going to put it 50%. I want everybody to just think for a second. If I'm wholesaling, I want you to ask yourself this question. In wholesaling, I have to be able to pay cash at a discount. Generally, it's at a discount because it's distressed. And most investors don't pay full price, especially with cash, right? So usually an investor has to get a return. They wouldn't pay it unless they're looking for the long-term run on it. If that's the case, I already know that I have to get a discount. I don't want to wholesale a property where they have no equity in it, because you can't wholesale it. That would change the strategy maybe to a lease option or seller finance, but not wholesale. So depending on what strategy you're working, I want you to think of that. If you're working the lease option business, number one, I like to define neighborhoods that they're generally in a good neighborhood. They don't need much work. Somebody could literally move in tomorrow. You might not like the paint, the carpets may not be cleaned, but people can move in. Would the owner be willing to, number one, take a small down payment, what we call option payment, receive monthly payments, and be cashed out in a short period of time, a year or 2 years? Would they sell or finance it? Would they deed me the property, not have to worry about maintenance costs and repairs, and make interest through that term and get paid off sometime in the near future? Could be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it may be. And the reason why I want you to ask yourself those questions, it's going to help you define how much equity that you're really looking for. Because if I'm working with lease options, as an example, I don't have to have any equity in the property. I would like some equity, but I don't have to have it. It's not required. Whereas wholesaling, it is required. If you're rehabbing, it is required. Seller financing, I still like to get a good deal, so I would put some equity here. So to me, this equity percentage is very valuable when you understand what business that you're working. Next, what I like to do is exclude any HELOCs and reverse mortgages, which Florida's known for the reverse mortgages. Let's
Mhm.
see, I don't even know if there are any. There's not even one single reverse mortgage in this list, by the way. As we scroll down, we get to the bedrooms, bathrooms, and all that stuff. And I want you to go back to what I said before, situations. People sell on situations. Most investors, sure, they want a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 4 bedroom, 3 bath. They want a bigger home. Got it. But aren't there homes that you could wholesale and work deals with that maybe are a 2-1? You think about it, somebody owns a house in every area here. You can make money as long as the numbers work. You have to make the numbers work. For me, if I'm wholesaling, I'm not real picky on how many bedrooms and bathrooms there are. If I'm rehabbing, I am picky. So I don't want to rehab a 2-1 because I know that my buyer pool is going to be much smaller. But if I'm wholesaling, I could assign this contract off to an investor that maybe rents properties out in that particular area because somebody always owns a house there. This is going to vary also depending on what strategy you're working. Square feet, lot size, to me, I'm not too picky if I'm working wholesaling, but I may be picky if I'm rehabbing. A lot of people say last sold date. As an example, if you select more than 2 years, meaning that the owner has owned it longer than 2 years, that somehow they would be more motivated. Maybe, but yesterday I wasn't in divorce, but today I am, right? I owned the property for a month. I'm still motivated. I want everybody to understand people sell because of a situation, not because they just want to sell to you. Otherwise, they'd have a for sale by owner sign sitting in the front yard, or they'd have it listed with an agent. A lot of these properties are going to be all off market properties. If I want to see properties that are listed for sale, I can go to Zillow, I can go to Redfin, I can go to realtor.com and pull that. To me, I know the last sold date is not super important to me, but I'm going to just market to everybody because I know it ultimately comes down to a situation. When I get to the owners, I do like to do individual owned. I like to talk to somebody that can actually make a decision. Sometimes it's hard, especially if it's a big company. You send marketing materials, it's never going to get in the right hands. Now, again, there are a lot of LLCs, Bo, that are just two people, right? You could send a postcard, they're going to get it. But I like to just separate that. Then we look at, does that owner live in state or out of state? Because remember, here at the top, we selected absentee owner. So we already know that they don't live here. A lot of people say, hey, if they live out of state, they're going to be more motivated. But as I just went back to you and said, I mean, they could live down the street and have problems and need to sell the house down the street. So to me, not super important. Now, you could do a test. You could build one campaign that says in state and then build another campaign that's out of state just to see what kind of results you get. To me, I'm just going to do them all because I want to get as much as I possibly can out there because I need to know if I'm going to direct mail market, as an example, I need to hit as many people as possible because I have to, that card has to land at the right time. And that moment of time is the time that somebody says, God, I got to do something with that property. I'm in trouble. My health issue. I lost my job. Something is going on. I'm tired of tenants. Something has to be going on. So I want to get it to as many people as possible. Now, when I apply that filter, it's obviously taking my list down. You may not have enough funds to market 2,200 people. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to go back to the filter. And the only thing that I didn't do was price. And this is where I could say, okay, give me the 300 to, let's say, 500. That's going to bring my list down to 261. Okay, so now that might be more affordable for me if you're that person that, look, Chris, I don't have a ton of money to invest in direct mail right now. That's where you would really adjust these prices. Now I want to move into the map unless you want me to show something else with that, Bo.
Well, the only comment I want to make here is, and don't leave this screen, but on the previous screen, you were saying that a lot of people don't realize you have this search by strategy. And
Yeah.
I just want to point out that it is a starting point, and those
Yes.
filters that you were just going through, we predefined those based on that situation. And it's again, a starting point. So you can then click on the filters and still tweak it. So it would get you started with some of the criteria that he's going over based on certain situations, and then you can further customize from there.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. I got to show you some really awesome stuff on this map. Now, I used Houston, Texas as a starting point. And as you could see, there are boundary lines around the city of Houston. Now, if I go in and see this little box that says search by map right here, if I check that, it's going to keep the filters that I've already set, but now actually go outside of the Houston boundary line. So just don't feel that you're confined. Let me zoom in just one here. Don't feel that you're confined within a boundary line. Now, I do have the option to come up here and say, hey, I want, uh, let's say College Station, since we're doing a Texas thing tonight, apparently. So if I do College Station, now I have two separate locations, which I'm going to check that, let it load real quick. Now I can see two separate different locations. Keep in mind, it's still based on those same filters. And I want to caution you for a second, because as you know, if I go to a different town, a city, those price points may be a lot different than where I started. So there are going to be times where you need to build separate campaigns. But you could put in multiple locations here. Now I'm going to take College Station back out. We're going to do search by map just for a second. So I'm just going to go, let's go to the north side here of Houston because I see several dots here. And I'm going to be kind of general at first here. What I love about this is maybe you focus on the north side of Houston. I could take this draw and I could say, okay, I want all of these. So some are within the Houston boundary line and some are outside. Now I can move my map over and say, I also want to pick these out as well. Now that you don't have to be that broad what I'm doing, but you can actually zoom in, which I'm going to show you. So if I just, let me X those out for just a second, and keep in mind, this is still based on my filter criteria, which I love. That way you're not confined into one area. Now I can go all the way to a street level with this, which I'm going to show you here. I can go to the street level and start cherry picking these properties. Okay. And I can draw. As I keep zooming out, I'm going to, now these dots are going to appear. If I start to move the map, those dots are going to appear. Now I'm going to uncheck this search by map. One of the things that I also want to share with you as I just kind of zoom in, I'm going to just pick this area here, is this layers here. So if I come over, obviously you can turn it to satellite, but if you let this little pop out come out, I can click the neighborhoods. It's going to take a second to load. There's a lot of different neighborhoods right here. Keep in mind, this is a large area that I'm picking here. Now you could zoom in, of course, but now I can really start to pinpoint very specific neighborhoods that are going to be in here. If you're a rehabber, you may be very picky on the school system. So if I pick high school here, you can see there's some D-rated schools. Here's a C plus school. So if I went in and said, okay, I want Carver High School, I could literally take the properties within that school boundary. Now, obviously, I can kind of see because there's not that many that are under these filters. I could literally just pick the school boundary and do that. Okay, so maybe, oh, I also maybe want this school boundary as well. So keep in mind, you have multiple capabilities from using the draw tool, maybe cherry picking some neighborhoods where you just draw the neighborhoods out. And you also have the ability from a school system point of view. And that's where wholesaling generally is going to be CD neighborhood, as we define what we say neighborhoods are. Okay. So I know that I have these capabilities, which is really going to help you in fine tuning even more your results. And keep in mind, you could do multiple areas at the same time. So don't think that you're just dependent on this one area. Okay. All you have to do is go back up into the search box. You do have the ability to, okay, what are the estimated values, equity dollars, equity percentage, and the tax value on there. Again, not too important to me because I've already set my filters of properties that I want to market.
Yeah, I wanted, since you were all on the map, real quick before you head to that location,
Yeah.
because some people, this is a new part of the update that was not there previously. Zoom into an area, and this works exactly like Google, and I think it confused some people because it is Google. When you get to a certain point, the little pegman icon there showing how you can drag it over and it'll show if Google has a street view of a certain area, you can drag the little pegman and it'll highlight the streets.
Yeah, I'm just picking a dot here as an example. All right, what do you want me to do, Bo?
First, just click and don't let up, but click and drag over on the map. You'll see the lines turn blue. Okay, if it's blue, Google's indicating that they have street level view on that. So if you've honed in on a certain area and you want to kind of virtually drive the neighborhood, I know a lot of people, that's a buzzword, virtual wholesaling and stuff. You can drop that pegman anywhere on top of a house. It'll point the camera right at that house, which is what he's talking about there. You can drop it on the street, and then you can drive up and down the street. So if you are interested in seeing what does this neighborhood look like before I start drawing tools and selecting, this was a new addition to LEADPro that a lot of people like. They just didn't understand how the pegman works just like Google does.
Yep. And a little back arrow here, you can get back out of that.
Back
One
out.
thing I really like is just to blow the whole thing up,
Yep.
especially if I'm really trying to pinpoint these properties. I like a full view. That's just me. All right, let's build a campaign. Now, you could select leads just on this page. I want to select all 261. You do have a certain amount of leads out of the 261 you can pick, as well as if you have a postcard budget. So obviously, the more you order postcards through us, obviously you get a better discount, but you put in a dollar amount, we will select the amount of leads that you can market to based on your budget. I'm going to select all. Now, the first thing I want to do is build a campaign. Now, this is just for you, the campaign name. Okay, so I might want to do Houston. I could do absentee vacant. And I know that I did 50% equity as an example. And again, this is just for you to understand what did you do here. You can select a campaign type here if you want. I'm going to keep it general because I did a list stack. So there's a couple of different lead types here. And then I'm going to take these leads and move them to a campaign. Now, if I go back over to the main menu, I go to marketing. You're going to see the Houston campaign right here. Now you have some opportunities. Now I could click on the campaign name and actually go through each property. Okay. At this point, I don't want to overanalyze stuff. I already know that it meets my filter criteria. I want to market these people. You can order postcards. You can print letters. We have tons of letter templates for you. You can clean the list, okay, and then export the list because maybe you do something different with it, as well as you could do a bulk skip trace on this list too, for those of you that just, hey, I want to pick up the phone and call. So you have multiple different ways and things that you could do with this list, just depending. If you do postcards, I'm going to show you some capabilities here. You select your workflow. Do I want to send 1, 2, or 3 mailers out? In this case, I'm just going to select one. If I had selected 2, you could say the frequency of that. Okay. I'm going to do this postcard, and then in 2 weeks from now, I'm going to do something else. Print date here. If you, hey, you're going on vacation, but you want to make sure that you get the order in so you don't forget, you could set that print date. So while you're on vacation, you've already placed the order, and select when you want these to be printed and sent to the post office. We're then going to continue. Now, we have several postcards in here. There's a couple of custom postcards. Now, this is based on the general category. You can go in and select all categories. You might like a postcard that, maybe is underneath one of these other ones. I could go to absentee owners here. And this is just me using a custom one. That's why there's 2 of them there. But you can see that we have just these postcards. So one of our favorites is this card. It's one of our most popular. So I'm going to use this one. I'm going to hit continue. Now you have the ability to go in and actually set your contact information. This is going to go, if you look at the postcard to the right, contact line 1 and 2. So if I just go in and select that, you're going to see your information. This is how people are going to contact you. Me personally, I like to put the phone number first and a web address below. If you don't have a website, obviously you could put an email address, or you could just leave it blank. Now, if you want a return address, you could click that as well. It's going to show up here by the postage. If you want a postcard sent to you, all you have to do is just enter your information in here. We do charge you for it, of course, but you can actually get the postcard in. You can see it, you can touch it. I'm going to move to continue. This gives you an opportunity to approve this list. Now, to me, this is so important, especially any list, but vacant list for sure. You need to do this. We're going to actually clean the list. As we all know, tax assessors are not perfect. Okay, so we need to standardize the address. We need to check for address errors. We need to see if there's a forwarding address. We call it list made because we're cleaning the list. Okay, so we get charged for it, so we pass the costs on to you guys, but I highly recommend you do this. If I go ahead and pay for this, I'm gonna let this run. It may take a second here. I need to know, out of that total quantity, how many of these are good. I have 6 address errors. 236 are good leads. So this is going to save you money, because if you were to send them all out, we know that there were some issues because of tax assessor doesn't agree with the post office because they don't communicate with each other. You do have the opportunity, once you place this order, to go back and see the address errors, make corrections to these properties, and move them to another campaign and then send it out in a future mailing. You will now see this will be the final checkout process for you at this point. I'm not going to place the order, but once you do place the order, it's going to say reorder here. You're also going to see this list made complete. Now, if I click on here and hit view errors, I'm going to be able to go through and see what errors are on this particular property. So the post office, not the tax assessor, the post office is sending this particular error. It says the premise, house, or building number for the address is not valid through the post office. Now, like I said, we all know the tax assessor is never always going to be perfect, just like all of us. So we need to understand, okay, maybe we need to research this property. I like to go to Google. That's the very first place that I go to. You then have the ability to come back and fix this address, whatever it is. I then could check this, go up to my actions. I can either move it to do not mail, add to my property section, or a marketing campaign. Of course, I could delete it as well. That's going to give me an opportunity now to go back Okay. Anything else from this point, Bo?
No, but just kind of going off of that, add to the do not mail list. If you find this just a bad address, you can add it to the do not mail, which would prevent in the future that address from popping up and going
Yeah,
through any kind of mail.
up here. Yep.
Yep.
So you can import leads, you can archive campaigns, you can custom postcards, custom letters. You could do all that as well. We do have tons of templates for you to use, but if you have something special, unique, maybe branded to your company you want to import, you can do that here as well. Lead generation is the most important thing. This is one way of finding leads. We talked about driving neighborhoods as well, putting the addresses in here. 90% of your time has to be about finding deals, period. Now, let's say somebody calls. Let me just go to my properties because I don't want to spend forever here. Now, if I go to my property list, you have a few different views. You can go this view or the next view. I'm going to show you the steps view, which is new here in just a minute. All right, so I'm going to pull this property up. So somebody in College Station called, hey, Chris, I want to sell. This section to me, this whole property section, everybody does this differently, but let me just give you my personal opinion because people want to understand what our process is. If I'm working a lead, I save it. I don't save it unless I'm working it because then it just eats up space here. Okay, but that's just me. We know we have people that go to LEADPro, pull 5,000 leads and move them all to this section. I've got to talk to someone. I got to market people. That's just part of the process. So step one to me is that deal. Now, a couple of shortcuts here at the top. And these are just going to be popular things that you want to get to. So if you get to the executable steps we're going to talk about, if you want to just pull the comp screen, you could do that. Deal Pro is our deal analysis, which I'm going to show you. You could skip trace it. You can move it to a campaign. You can archive the property. You could also delete it from this point. Over to the right, if you are on a team plan, you can share this lead to a very specific member. Your processes may have 8 people that work underneath you. This person finds the leads, qualifies the leads, and maybe then moves it to another process because this person over here does the inspections. This person over here runs the analysis and so on. So depending on how you have your team set up, this is giving you the ability to kind of move this property through your own process. Next is notes. This is big. This is new and it's movable, which is pretty cool because now you could be anywhere and actually take some notes. So as an example, we don't have any notes here. I'm going to click the plus symbol. Seller called, motivated, need to see. As an example here, you do whatever you want. You could put numbers, you could put bullet points, and even a checklist, which I think is pretty cool. Now, with this note, I could just keep it as this note and I could say goodbye. So if I come back here, you could see that note and you can put in multiple notes here. You don't have to just rely on just one note. You can also set this as a follow-up. So now I can come in here and set a follow-up date. I can choose a calendar that it's going to go on. Plus I could add a reminder. So let's say that I want a text alert as an example. You could do that here. When I hit save, one thing I want to show you is this big follow-up tag is going to be here. So to me, a follow-up is a priority note because a follow-up has to have language and a note behind it. You can always go back and uncheck that. So maybe it's not a follow-up and create another note as you see fit. And so highly encourage you use the notes. This is where I put notes. There's other places that you could put notes, especially in step 2, which I'm going to show you, but I really like using this.
Yeah, and these notes also interact with the dashboard calendar. So anything you're putting there on that calendar event shows up on the dashboard and so on.
Yep. If you have documents that you want to upload to this specific property, such as an HOA document, maybe a contractor bid, things of that nature, you could do that, which is be solely to this particular property. You can also email from this point, which we have a lot of new cool things with our email, especially like templates. Maybe you want to create an email template and have maybe multiple email templates. You could create that. It's going to speed up the process. Don't want to go too far in depth on the email side, but there's some really cool capabilities. You could print a property report. And as soon as I run the comps report, you can run a comps report. The arrows over here are just going to move to the next property or the previous property. We do have a new picture view here, which I love, man, especially when you just start putting pictures of this property in here. I love full screen stuff. Like I really want to see the pictures. You could do that. You can simply manage your pictures by clicking the three dots. You can One of the cool things is you can rearrange the pictures however you see fit. Add multiple pictures. They're going to be up here and uploaded. We store all that information for you. Underneath that is a star rating. This is up to you. How do you qualify this particular lead? Maybe it's a 3-star, not a 4-star, right? But it really is a 4-star. You're going to see the address. You could favorite this property, which will also interact with your dashboard of favorites and in your properties. When I go back into the main properties, you could just sort by your favorite properties. You could go in and edit information here by clicking this little pencil. You can also put in the asking price, which I really like having the asking price in here. We'll say it's 315. I can save this info. I like to have the primary contact. You could literally click this and it will call. Okay. If you click email, it's going to email. Okay. So just be aware of that. This is really going to be helpful if you're on a mobile phone and you want to call the seller. Okay. Obviously, the map is really cool. And we have added all kinds of things. Like I showed you over in LEADPro, you're going to have a lot of capabilities here with this as well, such as the neighborhoods, the school systems. You can click Street View if you don't want to take this guy here and actually run it on the property. As we scroll down, we have what's called tags. Now, these are what we call kind of universal tags. You tag properties however you see fit. You name it whatever you want. You have the ability to edit these tags. You could delete it. So you just put whatever you want in here. So I could come in, I'll just pick one of my particulars here, apply that tag. You will see that here. So these tags here are going to be whatever you want to make it. Maybe I need to call the owner. Hey, we need to put under contract. Whatever tags you want to put here, you can.
And that allows you to also filter properties by tags on the main property list screen. That's where a lot of people use that for.
And then we move to the property analytics from estimated value. You can see the plus minus from the previous month, potential equity, estimated loan balance, difference in median price, the estimated mortgage payment. We do pull Zillow rent estimates, the only Zillow thing we pull in here. It gives us a potential cash flow. So if I know that their estimated payment is here, it could potentially rent for this. It's going to give me potential cash flow on this property. Last sold date as well as the school rating. So you've got the information in the forefront. You can hide this by this little arrow here as well if you don't want to look at it. The biggest system part and one of the very first things that we put in REIPro is this right here. And this is what I call the executable steps. This is the process that we keep talking about. What do I do now? From a step one, we're going to give you all the public data from public record to mortgage information, deed transfers, and so forth. You do have the ability to edit some of this information as well. When you do edit the information, you're going to see the color will change to show you that was edited. And then you have some custom fields, like maybe you want to put in a lockbox code as an example. You could obviously put that in notes as well. Keep in mind, we built a campaign, we sent some marketing out, we got a call back, and now I'm going to move to step 2. When you do get a call, or if you're going to skip trace and do an outbound call, you would want to click phone scripts. Now, we have default phone scripts in here for you from for sale by owner, pre-foreclosure, rental, and vacant. But you also have the ability to customize and create your own phone scripts, all the way down to how do you initiate this call saying, hi, my name is Chris Goff, calling about your property, blah, blah, blah. Can you tell me a little bit about it? As they talk to you, you're going to fill in this information. Now, again, these are our default scripts, but you have the ability to use your own scripts. Maybe you have somebody that this is all they do. These are the questions you like to ask. You can create that here. If you're just getting started, this is what we recommend because these are the questions that I'm going to ask. Now, keep in mind, they're not bullet pointed questions. You do have to create a conversation. You can't say, ma'am, is the property vacant? Okay. Does it need repairs? Okay. You need to turn it into a conversation. And I'm going to tell you, When you start the conversation out, can you tell me a little bit about the property? They may answer 4 or 5 of these questions already here, right?
Mhm.
So keep that in mind. I always say building a relationship with the owner is so important because if they don't trust you, they don't buy into you, then it doesn't matter what you say. They don't want to do business with you. Be yourself. Don't get too cocky. I've seen so many wholesalers, right? And sellers could get cocky too, Bo. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, what you gonna pay me? I don't know. I haven't seen the house. Could you tell me a little bit about that property? I'm gonna steer somebody that has that kind of that putting up a wall because I already know it's gonna be a dead end if I retaliate, right? It's not gonna be a deal. Okay. There are going to be times it's not a deal. I've heard a lot more no's than I've ever heard yeses, but it's the yeses that make you rich. Conversation notes, you need to schedule an appointment notes. Okay. You can print this as well. You can reset the form. A lot of things you could do here. To me, this is very important. Now, let's say, as an example, that you don't have their phone number. This is where you could run the skip trace right here. Now, we do have 2 different reports when you have a saved property. So one report's going to give up to 3 numbers, landline, 3 cells, and any emails found. Whereas the premium report's going to give you nearest relatives, a deceased indicator, previous addresses, things of that nature. So depending on, how detailed you want the information, some people might say, look, let me just try the first cell phone number. But if you can't ever get a hold of them, you may want to contact the nearest relative. Now, I've run both reports for you. This report is the most basic report. If I go and I say, hey, this cell phone number is a good number, I can set this as my primary contact, or maybe I could set them as well as my secondary and not the primary. It's going to affect everything above. Okay. So we're just trying to make it a little bit easier for you to carry these numbers back over. Now, from a premium report, you're going to get a lot more information. I know Sherry Bridges owns the property, but Donald Lander, you can see this little, it looks like rings, wedding rings here. Maybe you can't get a hold of Sherry. She won't return your call. We don't know where Sherry is. She's lost. We could now move maybe to a nearest relative. And I think that's super important because at the end of the day, we just need to talk to someone to see if they're interested in selling. So I could actually set this person as my secondary, Donald as my secondary contact. And now I can quickly access this information. Let's assume for a second, maybe you just want to email them. Maybe you couldn't get a hold of them. You can do that here. Maybe you want to upload an attachment. Maybe you have a special attachment here. I've uploaded a special report that I like to send people. You can find these special reports over in our business center. We have tons of things that you can use in marketing to help you. You could download them, you can change them, you can re-upload them over here and make them yours. So we have all this information ready to go. You don't have to think of this. Well, what do I say, Chris? We already have a lot of stuff built for you. Or maybe if I talk to someone, they're like, I don't know, follow up with me in 30 days. So after I talk to them from the phone scripts, I can say, okay, great. I can move them to a marketing campaign and market that property in the future. Now, some people, this is probably a Chris Goff thing, is a print letter right here. Want to print a letter on the fly. It's because this is how I started off, right? So this was super important. I have so many different letters here that you can print on the fly. So if I go driving for dollars, I pull a property, try to call someone, can't get a hold of somebody. Maybe I just, you know what? I just want to do a one-off letter on this property and get it mailed. You could do that right here. Now, super important, when you complete step 2, and if it looks like a potential lead, we have to move to step 3. But before you move to step 3, I want you to mark this step complete with this checkbox over to the right. That's going to tell me now, if I leave this section, I go somewhere else and I come back to this property, I know that I have worked up to this particular step, which is step 2. If the deal looks like a deal, we need to go look at it. We can't properly give someone an offer if we don't understand what needs to be fixed on the property. We don't understand the neighborhood. We don't even know if we want to be here at this point. It's hard for me to create an offer. And I know a lot of people, what they do is they send numbers to somebody And if they bite, then I'll go look at it and give them a real number. And that's always a disappointment to a seller, but it is what it is. You can go in and now use our default template or create a new template. As an example, I could go and say the roof needs to be repaired. It's 1 unit. It's going to cost me $5,000. It's going to move it to a budgeted cost. When you act, if you were to buy this house, you're a rehabber, as an example, you could then put in your actual cost. So it actually cost me 5,200, and now I could actually mark that completed because we have a progress checklist here of items that need to be done. Now, if I say, okay, we need to replace 5 windows at, let's say, 500, maybe we need, let's not do foundation, let's do garage, we need to repair it. Maybe we just need to put some money into here. There you go. We'll use 750. As I start to go through this, I can add notes, I can add new line items, and I can also open up the rest of this particular property. Okay. I'm not going to go into too much depth here, but one of the cool things is just show me only the budgeted items. This will quickly get rid of all the nonsense that you don't want to see after you've already filled it out. Now, obviously, if I go to the exterior general checklist here, you can see that I've completed 1 of 3. So this is just going to keep you on track. You can print a blank form here. You can also print the current form of where you're at with it at that moment of time. Okay, now when you're done with the step, great. You're going to go home. You're going to tell the owner, hey, let me run some numbers and I'll get back with you to create an offer. Obviously, we want to do that pretty soon. We're going to move into step 4, which to me is probably the second most important thing after finding a deal. We need to run comparable sales. We have a brand new mapping system in here, a new way of doing it, but keeping it simple for people. And I'm not going to go into detail how to run comps, but you do have the ability to draw on the map. Here, you can zoom into street level, do a street level view. You can also see the neighborhoods, the boundaries, and so forth. So you're going to go in, you're going to select these comps. Now, we're in the state of Texas here. I don't know if you know, if you don't live in Texas, even if you do live in Texas, you may not know that Texas is what's called a non-disclosure state. Non-disclosure states it's against the law to publish sold data on a public website such as Zillow. You cannot find this information publicly. You have to be logged in, have special access and permission by the MLS to even showcase this information. So all of our sales are through the MLS here. Now, you do have the ability to come up and filter these comps by clicking filter. And this will help you narrow down to the most comparable properties quickly without just going through a string of properties here. If you find a property that is comparable, all you have to do is just simply check it. Now, I'm just checking anything at this point. Obviously, you'd want to go through this in a little more detail. We're going to then get to this after repaired value. That's the number we're really looking for. You can print this report. You can email this report. If you want to run a full deal analysis on this, this is where you go into LEADPro. So let's say that I want to purchase it and then I want to fix it up and sell it as an example. You could then go through a more detailed analysis to understand what profits that you can make on this. What is your return on investment? Is this even a good deal? Or maybe you want to purchase it and lease option it. Or maybe you want to purchase it and sell or finance it. Or maybe you just want to sell or finance it and rent it. You have so many opportunities to analyze every situation right here. So highly encourage you to use this system. People love this part of it. All right, so now we're going to get into the offer side of it. So as you know, cash offer, we talked about, you have to get at a discount. All you have to do, we've already carried the ARV over here, okay? If you don't get all this, there's a training video on how to go through this. We want to go in and actually fill out expenses. Now, are you wholesaling it or are you rehabbing it? It's very similar, but it is a little different. You're going to go in and fill all of these expenses out. Obviously, we have a video here that can help walk you through that. Once I put the expenses in, I'm then going to put in potential profits. So if I'm wholesaling it, I'm going to put a potential profit. You could use a slider as well on this. Now, generally, your rehabber's profit, you have to estimate, okay? Because you have to make an offer. You have to take the ARV minus expenses, minus any potential profits, and that would be your cash offer. If you're working lease options, you can create a lease option offer. You can create a seller finance offer. And our newest offer is our pre-foreclosure offer. You have the ability to create multiple offers. If I go and see a property, a lot of times I create multiple offers and give them all to the seller at one time. My cash offer is going to be here, my lease option offer is going to be here, or my seller finance offer is going to be somewhere in the middle. Maybe you do a cash offer and a seller finance offer. Maybe you are rehabbing the house, you don't want to use your cash, you seller finance it for a short period of time to give you time to fix it up, rehab it, and sell it off. There's so many different ways that you can do real estate, but at the end of the day, this is really what it comes down to. And now you're going to have those multiple offers. Remember, check it complete. If they accept your offer, we move to step 5, and that's filling out a contract. Now, you can go in and use our contract writer with our contracts here. All you have to do is just fill out the information on the left-hand side. It's going to show up on the right-hand side. And then you have the ability to come back. Once I do this, you could go back and actually save it, which I didn't save it. And then you can print it, and you have some actions here that you can do with it. Were you going to say something, Bo?
Yeah. And it, let's say that you worked this, you emailed it, you printed, you sat at the kitchen table, you've inked it. You can also come back in here and upload that signed version of the contract just to keep a record of it right here attached to the property as well. And it'll be right there on the right-hand column.
That's right. Now, once you do this, make sure you mark it complete. You're going to see why here. Step 6 is what we call affidavit. It's a very simple thing to protect your investment on the deal. How many times, it doesn't happen a lot, but how many times could a seller accept your offer, put it under contract, and then sell it to another investor and they close on it before you do? How do you think I know about this? Because it happened to me. Check that done. And now we need to find a buyer. One of the cool things that we have in here is an ad writer, because a lot of people don't know how to write an ad. You can go in and select the types of buyer that you're looking for. Okay, seller finance, or you can create a custom ad right from here. Now, if I go in and just let's say it's a handyman special, we have some single family home, let's say minor repairs. You go in and choose features. Again, you could go and put anything you want. We just have some drop down selections just to keep it simple for you. Now, you will have to fill out a few things here. Let's see, is ready areas would rent for, let's say, 2,800. And again, where do you find that information? Actually, it's not 2,800, it's 19, we'll say 2,000, like to round it. I could then save this particular ad. I could clear the ad. I could view or print it down here as well. Now, we need to create a flyer, especially if you're going to use flyers. You have that ability to create a flyer here. So I could go in and select my pictures, whatever pictures that I want. You can select up to 4. Okay. You could add different pictures at that point too, which I must have not selected all those, but there we go.
Hmm.
All right, that was my bad. Now, I know that I filled out an investor ad, so it's going to carry that ad over here. And then I can put my contact information in here and save it. At that point, obviously, you have created a basic flyer. And this is for people that don't know how to do it, right? So we have an ad creator. You could create the flyer. You can also email your buyers that are on your buyers list here. You can search for buyers that you have saved to the system. And just over on the main menu, so not only can you save your buyers, you can save all your contact. This is where I would be pulling that list from. Now, once I market this property, obviously we're looking for a buyer. I'm gonna mark that complete. And now I need to put it under contract. However, I'm getting rid of this particular property. And then I can go to closing at this particular point. Now, we do have a nice map here with suggested title companies. None of these title companies or attorneys' offices have any agreement with REIPro. We're just displaying them, especially for people that are just getting started and don't know where to go. Okay, so you can obviously get their contact information right here and utilize the map too. So you can zoom in and look at different title companies right from the map as well. You can also add in your own as well. You could also search, and if you have a favorite, maybe you only invest in one area, you could obviously save that. I didn't mark those complete, but I want to show you something super cool. If I go back over to the properties, I know this is a lot of info coming at you. If you display the steps here at the very top, you're now going to have the executable step tracker. This is going to show you all of your properties and where you have left off with every property. So not only we're walking you through the process of not just finding a deal, but getting to the closing table, you're going to see where you have left off with these particular deals. And that's huge. I know it's quick visual. You can sort by these steps. Okay. So you can say, okay, show me all the properties that we've got, through step 4. Okay. Where are we at with getting contracts just on these properties? You could do that up here as well. You have a filter button you can use to sort your properties. There's a lot of in-betweens here that we highly encourage you. Hopefully we highlighted some points to you if you're a current member with REIPro. Maybe you didn't know some of these things existed.
There's a lot more, obviously going into some of this stuff. The education part, I want to point out there
Yes,
is
let's
the
go to the
recommendation.
education because
Yep,
that's
because
right.
that's the piece
Totally
you're
missed
like
that.
number one. This is these in-depth videos to help train on some of this stuff.
Yeah, so let's say you want to get started wholesaling. I'm going to click the wholesaling tab. What I would recommend everybody to do is go through our training series. So here we have 5 videos that walk you through what wholesaling is, how to execute it, and obviously through the system as well. I did record these prior to the update. So obviously things have changed visually, but the concept in the systems are still here in place. Okay. Like how to wholesale pre-foreclosure. When I put this video, I think everybody on YouTube started copying it. Like we have
Mhm.
like close to 1 million views probably on this one video. So you have access to all of this education right here. And this is just one subject matter. Maybe you want to learn pre-foreclosure investing. We'll go through, look at how many episodes we have just in our pre-foreclosure side of it. Like we're going to start from the beginning and we're going to work our way through the process with each one of these strategies and many other things as well. So yes, the education is big. If you're new, just starting a free trial, jump into the education, start putting in a property address. I always say, people always talk about doing real estate, but they never take action. It's like they keep studying, it's like
Mhm.
here's the information. We have it all right here within one platform. It costs thousands of dollars for somebody to learn all this stuff, all wrapped up into one REIPro software. And just so everybody knows, yes, we're going to be doing some live Q&As for our members as well coming up here. I think it's a great time. We take time out of the day to give back to you guys through our live Q&A. So when we post a live Q&A, I want you to go to the dashboard. And it's going to be more on the communication side. It's going to be an announcement, just like you could see tonight. Okay, so anytime we do this and you can make it and you have questions, it's like free coaching. You're not hearing it from a paid employee to teach you. We built this, we understand it. We're the real estate people.